everyone, in today's video I'm going to be doing a first impression and review of the new Sephora Collection Pro palette. I got mine in the editorial version. So there are three different versions of this palette. There are the cool, warm, and editorial. I almost got the warm version of this palette. I decided to not get it because I have so many other palettes that have warm toned eyeshadows. So I actually don't own an eyeshadow palette that has a bunch of bright colors like this one does. So this palette costs $68 and you get 28 eyeshadows. Each of the eyeshadows are 0.04 ounces. I know that some people have been saying that $68 for a Sephora Collection palette is a lot of money, but if you do the math and divide the $68 by the 28 shades in the palette, then it comes out to $2.43 per shadow. I don't think that around $2.50 per shadow is a lot of money, considering that Makeup Geek and MAC are both $6 per shadow, and then ColourPop is around $4 to $5 depending if they're on sale. Just to compare how much product you get in other single eyeshadows versus these, the Makeup Geek eyeshadows are 0.064 ounces. The MAC eyeshadows are 0.05 ounces, and then the ColourPop eyeshadows are 0.053 ounces. So yes, you are getting more product in these single shadows by those brands, but not by much. So you get 4 different finishes in this palette. There are matte, satin, shimmer, and chrome shades. So I have seen a lot of people on YouTube compare this palette to the Natasha Denona 28 shadow palette. I don't own any Natasha Denona palettes, so I can't really say how these shadows compare in formula to these ones. The Natasha Denona palettes have 28 eyeshadows as well. They are double the size. They are 0.08 ounces. But the palette does cost $239, which I think is a lot of money. I've heard that the Natasha Denona palettes are super awesome and their shadows are super pigmented, but I just can't bring myself to spend $239 on an eyeshadow palette, so I think that this is a great alternative. Another eyeshadow palette that I thought was similar, not in color at all, but just the fact that it has so many shades, is the Lorac Mega Pro palette. I did see on Ulta's website today that they re-released the Mega Pro 3 palette. It was a limited edition palette. I believe it came out last holiday season, but I'm not really sure. I don't really know why they re-released it, but it's up on their website. The Mega Pro palettes cost $59 and you get 32 eyeshadows. 16 of them are matte and 16 are shimmer. So they give you the total net weight of the Lorac Mega Pro 3 palette, and it is 0.45 ounces, which when you do the math comes out to around 0.014 ounces per shadow, which is not a lot of product at all. So I did get my palette in stores. I was gonna order it online, but I decided that I couldn't wait, so I went to Sephora and picked it up. Whenever I first picked this up in stores, I was shocked because it's super heavy. The packaging feels really nice. So the packaging is plastic and it says Sephora Pro in these metallic letters. Each of the different versions has a different color writing on it. The editorial is blue. So this is what the inside of the palette looks like. They do give you a super nice big mirror. So they didn't put these shade names on the actual palette, they just put it on this little clear insert that comes inside. So now I'm going to insert a clip of me swatching all of the shades. I did run my finger through the shadow just a few times, nothing crazy, and I did one swipe on a dry arm, no primer, no nothing. So to start off, I am swatching the first row of eyeshadows. This entire row is mostly shimmer eyeshadows except for the first one, which is a matte white eyeshadow. This row has more of your all over lid shades in it. Next we have the second row in the palette, which is one of my favorites just because it has so many pinks and purples in it and I think they are beautiful. So all of the shades in this row are matte except for the last one. In the third row you get your more green and blue eyeshadows. 4 of these eyeshadows are matte and then the other 3 are shimmers. In the last row, you get a bunch of beautiful shimmery eyeshadows. Some of these are more metallic looking eyeshadows. Some of them remind me of eyeshadows from the Huda Beauty Textured Shadows palette. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and try the eyeshadows on my eyes. I have not used them yet, so this is my first impression. I really honestly want to use all of these pinks, but I never do anything in blue, so I think I'm going to go ahead and try out the blues and greens that are down here in the palette. So obviously all of my face makeup is done. The only thing that I have on my lids right now is concealer. So first I'm going to go in with this white shade, and it is a matte, and I'm just going to apply this all over my lid. So I always love a really good matte white eyeshadow, and this one is super pigmented. So when I dip my brush into the palette, you can see that it's already kicking back a lot of powder. Okay, so I'm just gonna wing it. This might be a little crazy. So I'm first going to dip into this light blue tealish shade right here, and I'm going to kind of use this as my transition shade. So now I'm going to pick up this shade right here with a little bit smaller of a blending brush, and I'm just going to run this through my crease, and I'm going to keep it a little bit lower. I'm going to kind of put this on my outer corner and then blend it into my crease. So now I'm going to pick up a little bit of this kind of like lime green, and I'm just going to run it over where I put that first transition shade. So I really want to use this sparkly white eyeshadow up here, so I'm just going to apply that all over my lid with my finger. And ignore my nail with no nail polish. Whoa. It's super chunky. So literally this thing is so chunky, it's all in my eye. I don't know if you guys can see how much fallout's on my face, but it's insane. I'm sure this would apply way better with some MAC Fix Plus on a brush. Okay, just to blend everything out, I'm gonna go back in with that first shade I used and just run it back throughout my crease. I'm also going to take that light blue and just run it underneath my lower lash line, connecting it to where my outer corner is. And I'm just going to take a little bit of that matte white eyeshadow again and just put some in my inner corner and underneath my brow bone. So now I'm just going to go ahead and apply some mascara, and I will be right back. So far I am really enjoying this palette. I think that it's a great price for getting so many shadows, and the pan size is pretty decent. They do give you this long sheet of all these different looks that you can create using different shadows, which I think is super great for beginners who don't really know where to begin with a palette. I did have some issues with that super chunky glitter shade that I used on my lid. I do think that it would work a lot better if I had applied it with a brush and maybe wet my brush. You do get a lot of fallout with these eyeshadows, but it's not the kind of fallout that just sticks on your face. I could easily just wipe it away with a brush. These shadows kind of remind me of Lorac eyeshadows, just in the sense that whenever you dip your brush into them, they do have a lot of kickback and they kind of get a little bit messy. I think that for $2 eyeshadows, they do work really well. I know a lot of people have said that the shadows are not all consistent, but I didn't really see that whenever I was swatching them. I don't always rely on just an arm swatch to tell me if the palette is good or not. I like to see how it performs on the eyes. That was like when I first swatched my Huda Beauty Textured Shadows palette. I was so disappointed because the matte shades were not pigmented at all, but when you actually apply it to your eyes, they do work. They are pigmented, they blend out. I am planning on filming some more tutorials using this palette. The Editorial palette has so many different colors. There are so many different looks you can create with it. Let me know in the comments down below if there are any colors in the palette that you want me to use. So I will continue to keep you guys updated with how I'm feeling about this palette when I use it in my next tutorial. So yeah, this completes my first impression of the new Sephora Collection Pro palette. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And thank you so much for watching.